And welcome to this episode of Time About the Movies. Why are we not having an intro this week? I don't know, I just didn't feel like doing it specifically for just two movies in general, but this is a rather intriguing weekend for the movies because these two films have potential going into it as we're looking at the two films that make up June 15, 2012, but as we're going to talk about, potential doesn't always mean a great movie. You can't really judge the book by its cover, you got to read through it, and these two films are the prime example of having to look through this to really see how this really didn't turn out to be as good. These films didn't really turn out to be as good as we thought they were going to be. And let's start off with the first one that we have here, and that is Rock of Ages, which is Adam Shankman's musical follow-up to Hairspray, which came out 5 years earlier, was a massive hit, featured a bunch of notable names in it, John Travolta, James Marsden, Amanda Bynes, Nikki Blonsky, who else was in it? Zac Efron, Brittany Snow, Queen Latifah, just a lot of notable names in that movie. It was a great film overall. This one, my God, it was so close to being as good as that one, but let's talk about this movie. Based off the Broadway musical of the same name, it's set in 1987 Los Angeles, where you have two people who are chasing their dreams in the big city. When they meet, it's love at first sight, though their romance will face a series of challenges. And you got all these different stories going around, centering around this big rock star, Stacey Jacks, played by Tom Cruise, which was kind of a big deal back then because his career was on the up and up thanks to the success of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, kind of bringing him back on the comeback scene. And, anytime you saw him, people got excited to see what he was going to do with his next film. And to his credit, he is one of the strongest things about this movie. I mean, he is really, really good as Stacey Jacks. He can be very funny. He's also a pretty damn good singer. In fact, everybody in here does a really good job with the singing in this. If you don't know me, I love 80s music, and so this is right up my alley. It's a jukebox musical, and featuring a lot of notable names in here. I mean, not just Tom Cruise, but also you got Julianne Hough coming off of her success with Footloose, the debut of Diego Boneta, but you also have Russell Brand, Alex Baldwin, Paul Giamatti, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Malin Ackerman, Mary J. Blige, Bryan Cranston. Just a stacked cast overall, and featuring many classic rock songs from back in the day from people like Def Leppard, Journey, Scorpions, Poison, Foreigner, Guns N' Roses, Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, Bon Jovi, Twisted Snake, REO Speedwagon, Whitesnake, you name it. I mean, the best thing about this movie is the soundtrack, and these actors do a damn good job doing covers of these songs. I mean, they were actually really, really good overall. Like, the one that really took me by surprise was Alec Baldwin and Russell Brand doing I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore by REO Speedwagon. That was something that I was not expecting to be as good as it could have been, but yeah, the soundtrack overall is really good. I mean, Tom Cruise in particular, when he does Pour Some Sugar on Me, I mean, that is such a good cover, and just showed that Tom Cruise was back and he was able to make fun of himself in general. So it sounds like the movie could be fun, right? Well, then you got to talk about the script overall, and I think the script really is very chaotic and very all over the place. But then again, when you look at one of the names of the writers on this, oh no, it's Alan Loeb, the same guy that gave us such masterpieces of comic gold like The Dilemma and Just Go With It and Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. This is not a good script overall because he's not a very good writer. But it's co-written by Justin Theroux. Justin Theroux's not a bad writer. And at times, it almost works. But the script is all over the place. Scenes make no sense whatsoever. Tom Cruise, there's one scene in particular where he's literally singing into Malin Ackerman's ass for no particular reason whatsoever. I mean, it's a scene where it just feels really out of the blue. It comes out of nowhere. It's just kind of like, why is that even in this movie? And there's a lot of scenes like that in this film where they just go off cue for no particular reason whatsoever. And to me, that's where the movie kind of falls apart really quickly. And not only that, the film is way too long. It's over 2 hours long, and for a film like this, there's no reason for this to be that long in particular. And yeah, for me, it's very much a mixed bag of a movie. It's a movie where the cast is overall pretty good, the songs are really good, but it's the story that really kind of falls apart. The pointless scenes that come out of nowhere for no reason, like why are they even in here? And a lot of that really kind of ruins the ebb and flow of the film in general. The soundtrack is great. If there's anything I would recommend about this movie in general, it's that soundtrack. It's something that you have to listen to. But the movie itself, more of a mixed bag. A mixed opinion on this one, but more of a disappointment in general, especially considering that Adam Shankman's not a bad director at all. It's just, this is the guy that made Hairspray, and Hairspray works very well and I guess they were trying to copy that same success there, but trying to do something a little bit different from the source material, and also trying to have a script that's too chaotic for its own good, really, I think, hurts the film overall in the long run. It's not a bad movie. It's just a movie that I felt like there was so much more left on the table that they couldn't throw in there that I really felt should have been in there. So, yeah, it's a very mixed opinion, more leaning towards a negative response on the movie itself, but the soundtrack is definitely the thing you want to listen to. If there's one thing I can recommend about this movie, seek that soundtrack out if you can find it, because that soundtrack is pretty good. Hearing these celebrities doing these covers, I mean, that's good stuff right there. The movie, not so much. So let's go ahead and take a look at the last one we have here, and that is Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg in the first of their two movies in 2012. This one is definitely the worst of the two. Let's talk about That's My Boy.
Who I would like to fuck hard and long!
So I'm gonna go put a dent in that.
Did I forget to mention this movie was rated R? Because I'm sure if I didn't do it, that was going to tell you right there that, yeah, they were going so hard for the R rating, and needless to say, they failed miserably at it. I mean, this movie, this isn't Jack and Jill levels of bad, but it's pretty damn close. And what makes this even more of a depressing movie is the people who are involved with this movie, which I'll get to them in a moment. But this movie features Adam Sandler as a guy named Donnie Berger, who's a middle-aged alcoholic who once enjoyed celebrity status for being at the center of a teacher-student statutory rape case, which he bangs his teacher, played by Susan Sarandon's daughter, which was Ava Murray, who happens to be when we go back to the present day, she's now played by Susan Sarandon. I mean, that makes perfect sense to do that, but maybe not. Maybe in a better movie it would make sense. But he's trying to rekindle his relationship with his adult son, Todd Peterson, or as he calls him, Han Solo Burger. Just why? Played by Andy Samberg, born as a result of that illicit relationship, in hopes that the televised reunion will earn him enough money to avoid going to prison for tax debts. That is literally the plot of this movie, and it makes no sense whatsoever. But the worst part about this movie is that this isn't done by the usual Happy Madison people. I mean, a lot of Adam Sandler's crew members are in this movie, but this is directed by Sean Anders, whose last movie he directed was Sex Drive, I believe it was. Let me double check it just to make sure. I could have sworn it was Sex Drive, because he worked on Hot Tub Time Machine, I think. No, he did do Sex Drive. But yeah, this was his follow-up to that movie, so I mean, he's not in the Adam Sandler fold until this film. But worst of all, this is written by David Casp, who you may not know because you might not look at the credits on TV shows, but he's the guy who created one of my favorite TV shows, Happy Endings, the short-lived show on ABC that ran for a couple seasons, and I thought was the much better Friends show than the actual Friends was. But yeah, David Casp, the writer of one of my favorite TV shows, and Sean Anders, the guy who made Sex Drive, made this movie. And it turns out this bad. I mean, my God, this movie was bad. And it's bad for the reasons that you think it is. It is trying way too hard to push for that R rating. It's trying way too hard to be too gross for its own good. The raunchy humor here is just forced on so many levels. And considering that Adam Sandler's last movie was the PG-rated Jack and Jill, and now he goes from that to this, like, it's just, like, I don't want to say anything bad about Adam Sandler. I mean, Adam Sandler is a funny guy. I like Adam Sandler. I really do. But this was getting to around that time when he was just making bad movies for the sake of making bad movies. I mean, he was making movies literally as tax write-offs for his own vacations, which is funny that the character in this movie is trying to avoid going to prison for his tax debts. Like, why does he just go on vacations and make movies off of them like Adam Sandler does in real life? Because that's what he did for most of this first half of the decade. I mean, he was making these movies for nothing more but tax write-offs. I mean, that's literally what it is. And here's another one where it literally feels like he's forcing this movie to get made for a tax write-off. It just doesn't feel like the effort is being put in there with this movie. I have no problems with Adam Sandler or Andy Samberg. I think they're both very good, and they're very good. They're very funny people. And like I said, they're going to be in a much funnier movie later in the year. And you got a cast that also includes Leighton Meester, James Caan, Susan Sarandon, Milo Ventimiglia, these Will Forte, really, really good actors in here. and this is the best comedy you could give him. I mean, this is a movie that's not even trying to be funny. And we're going to have a much more successful R-rated comedy coming up in the next couple of weeks that actually took chances, actually did something unique with its premise, and actually made for a really funny movie that was actually the best comedy that came out that summer. But we're still a couple of weeks from that away. But by a couple of weeks, I mean a couple of days, and I'll get to that later this week. But the bottom line here is that That's My Boy is a complete waste of everybody's talents involved in here, and just another big blemish for Adam Sandler in general. Now, granted, it's nowhere near as bad as his quartet of terrible films in 2011. You know, Just Go With It, Zookeeper, Bucky Larson, Jack and Jill. Those four are still the worst things he's ever been associated with. But this isn't any better either, and it's definitely around that time when Adam Sandler was just making these really bad films for the sake of just making tax write-offs off of them. I mean, his best movie was Blended, and that was the one that was actually well received by most people, and nobody went to go see it at the box office. That's the one that crashed and burned at the box office. But then again, this one didn't do so well either. This was both a critical and financial failure. It barely made back the minimal of its budget of $57.5 million, but some says it goes up to $70 million. Like, how do you spend $70 million on this movie? Honestly, what in this movie counts for $70 million of a budget? I just don't get it, man. This movie is such a mess. Needless to say, you can avoid That's My Boy like the plague, but stick around with Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg, because like I said, they will have a much better movie coming out later on in the year, which is far, far superior than this pile of garbage was. No question about it. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll take a look at 4 more big summer movies, including Disney and Pixar's film that they hope to try to combat the critical and financial failure of Cars 2 with Brave, which sort of does that, but it's still not up to par that Pixar is just supposed to be at this point. And even when people that like the movie saw it, they were just kind of like, eh. I mean, they don't think of it as one of Pixar's best movies, and I'll try to explain why coming up on the next episode. We'll also take a look at a big screen adaptation of one of the great graphic novels that could make for a really good movie. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, directed by the guy who did Wanted, produced by Tim Burton as well. We also have one of my favorite underrated comedies that came out and just kind of crashed and burned, but the movie is great overall. Steve Carell, Keira Knightley leading a star-studded cast in Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. And we also have Woody Allen's follow-up to his best film overall, Midnight in Paris, with To Rome with Love. Will it be as good as that? No, but will that make it a bad movie? We'll talk more about that tomorrow on the show, so stay tuned for that. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honor of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the last episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.